Hey guys, if you like this content, I would greatly appreciate it if you guys like the video and subscribed to my channel. It helps make these videos worth it going forward.
What's up, guys? Altcoin Sherpa here with a crypto market review. As always, this is not financial advice. I'm not an expert. Do your own research. Okay, so I took a few days off just because I had a friend visiting from out of town, but hopefully I will be able to get, I'm hoping every single day next week. So yeah, let's see what happens. So where are we at with Bitcoin? Bitcoin is in a momentary uptrend, which everybody likes to see. However, it's very important to understand the overall context of this chart. This chart to me is still bearish until shown otherwise. And until price can break this 45K area, this is just going to be another lower high. Now, where would I start to change my bias in a break of market structure? I would start to break my bias if we see a break at 45, so this specific high set in January 12th, and we see some sort of higher low formed. As of right now, the current low is this 32, 33K area. And if we see some sort of higher low formed, and furthermore, we're able to break even higher above this high that we're about to set now, then I would really start to consider changing my views in terms of what the market structure is like and if we're all of a sudden going to go bullish. With that said, I'm still not sure if we're going to get a higher high on this first go. Around 45K. It's quite possible that price just hits like a lower high. So maybe we hit something like this where we just start topping out around here. And I'm really interested in seeing where this low is set, because where this low is set is really going to dictate, in my opinion, where the next like kind of where my overall bias is going to be in the midterm. Uh, as of right now, like I'm currently still bearish in the short term and midterm. I still believe that we could potentially flush down to 28K. That's kind of the area that I've been viewing for quite some time. At a minimum, I do believe that we revisit 33 to 34K though. And the reason for that, as I've discussed in many other videos in the past, is simply because every single time you bottom out, you see price wicking down to these demand zones several times. It's very rare that you see a macro bottom formed with just some sort of V-shaped reversal. It's very often where you see some sort of bottom formed when you see lots of wicks into this demand area. Now, we haven't really seen many wicks, and that's one of the reasons why when I was looking back maybe around late December, I noticed that we didn't really fill in this demand area at all. And if you notice, we don't, like in the previous support, or sorry, the previous bullish consolidations that we've had a lot of wicks into this demand area, wherever the demand area is. So for May, it was back around the 30K area, and we saw many wicks into that area, or around there, 33K or whatever. Whereas for this big wick that we had on early December, we never really saw any wicks down below, and that's one thing that's very scary, because this market structure right here looks quite a bit different than the market structure back in May. In May, we just saw like a massive nuke and then lots of choppy recovery after that. This right here, this price action that we're seeing in overall November to January, we're seeing like a much more normal bearish trend where we have lower highs and lower lows. We're not really seeing any massive nuke overall. Now, what are some of the differences between these two? Well, um, this overall price action that we're seeing currently is much more this reminds me much more of the price action that we saw back in like 2018 and 2019. This was like a slow grind down. Markets never move in one direction. Like, generally speaking, like it's going to look more like this, where it's a slow grind down, lower highs, lower lows. Whereas this is just like a massive market nuke, as I said. What are some of the differences? Well, um, one thing about this type of price action with a slow grind down is you don't need a huge amount of volume to really go back up. And the reason is that because you see the sell liquidity getting picked off every single time, or it's getting tapped every single time. Uh, every time it makes it like a lower high. So a lot of the sellers get out on those moves. There's just residual sell liquidity. Whereas on the big nukes down, it usually takes a long time to just chop around. And I'm not saying you don't need to chop around on this type of price action either. Like you definitely still need to chop around in this type of slow grinding price action. Like in other words, you need to like form some sort of bottom, but um, you'll see this type of consolidation more for the nukage in my experience. Now, with that said, every single type of accumulation, in my opinion, that requires some sort of last shakeout. That's pretty common with regards to Bitcoin and altcoins. Is like in a bearish market structure, you generally need one last shakeout, and obviously it's a very small sample size. And the biggest shakeout, obviously, that we saw was back in March 2020. This did not need to consolidate because of how much liquidity was collected. So many sellers got destroyed and liquidated relative to the market that it didn't need to consolidate because it took everyone out on this big move. But right now, what I mean by like one last shakeout is the infamous 6K level in 2018. I mean, when I was a noob, I thought we were like accumulating because I had no idea what I was talking about or like what I was even doing. And but I failed to recognize that you generally need one last shakeout before accumulation starts, and this is the infamous 6K to 3K kind of move down in 2018, and then price obviously accumulated for quite some time, and then we all know what happens next. We had a nice move up, and similarly here, like this had to chop around for quite some time, and then it also had one last shakeout, a brutal shakeout, before it recovered. So we might have just, I'm not dismissing the possibility that this was like the final shakeout here, like this move down, this 24% move, but in my opinion, I think that we still have one more left to go. And what I'm really kind of expecting is to see where maybe like this, like maybe some sort of lower high, and this could even squeeze higher too. Maybe like it goes like 50K, I don't know. And then we see some sort of last shakeout where we just nuke everybody, liquidate everybody, going from like 50K to 30K. Everybody's like super bearish, and people get cleansed, big last shakeout, and then we're able to bottom out. This would be something that I'm really interested in, and this is something that I'm looking for overall. But again, I'm not opposed to the idea that this is the bottom here, this 33K area. But I do expect another revisit to that level. I think that we're going to see something like like another chop period. Like bottoms take a long time to form, and I expect this to consolidate for quite some time. With that said, I don't necessarily expect the consolidation to look quite like the others in the past, just because this market structure looks different than this May market structure. As I said, this is a big nukage where we just had to chop around for quite some time. This is much more the slow grind down. So it's going to be very interesting to see what this recovery period looks like. I do expect some sort of more consolidation. And again, I don't know what it's going to look like. It's possible that 33K is the bottom, or 34K. I don't really know, but I am still being cautious right now. I still am having the plan of de-risking a little bit higher. I de-risk a little bit today, but I really do think that the lower high is going to come, and it's going to come higher than everyone thinks. So, as I said, it wouldn't surprise me if it's like 45 to 50K. Everyone's super bullish, and then we see like, another move down. That's entirely possible. Now, if we do get like the last shakeout, then I would expect something like 28K or around there, 27, 26. Like this area, there should be like some liquidity underneath here. 25K, I don't know where it's going to go. It's a bit too early to call for that as of right now. And I have seen a lot of arguments too that there aren't many other people to liquidate just because this big move down have gotten out all the sellers. So there's not really going to be as many sellers on the way up when you have this type of market structure, in my opinion. Whereas, yeah. So, anyways, it's going to be very interesting, but I am expecting at least a revisit to 33 to 34K. I still am very exposed to crypto, so I definitely didn't play this as well as I could have. Um, because if you remember, I did have a bullish bias all throughout kind of like December. I did feel like this was still a bullish market structure because I felt this was still going to be a higher low. But of course I was wrong. This low got taken out, and yeah, this is just like I've come around more to the idea that this is just going to be probably a choppy year, and I do think that maybe we just see a range between 30 and 60K for the next like several months, where we'll see like lots of chop, lots of moves up, moves down, but overall mostly consolidation. I think that would be healthy for the market, and if this happens, then I think that altcoins will do okay. So what are some overall resistance levels that I'm viewing right now? As I said, I am viewing this high around 44K. This to me was like the last high that was set. And if that can break, then obviously the next high would be 52K. These are two significant levels in my opinion. And you can also draw some other levels too. Like this would be an interesting level here, this 51K area. As you can see, price could not close above that level over the course of 2 weeks. Price kept grinding all around and could never close above that level. So that to me, so it looks like an interesting level. Similarly here, price tapped this kind of area around 43K several times. So again, this is another interesting level. As I said, my overall plan right now is really just to go ahead and de-risk some around here, 44, and then I really want to see where the low is at. If the low is like a higher low and we chop around for a while, and this isn't going to be representative because crypto always moves faster than we think. If this forms a better low, then I think that I'll start to really consider changing my bias, and this is a brick of market structure. But until that time, I still believe this is bearish in the short term. I do believe that we'll at least hit 33 to 34K. We'll wick down into this demand area, and we'll see what happens after that. I don't know if this is the bottom again. I'm still kind of waiting for 28, but I'm not one of those people that's like flat right now, which I kind of obviously wish I was flat, but is what it is. And one last thing, the reason why I don't think this is a V-shaped bottom right now, there is like I can imagine some arguments for it just because this type of grinding price action is this is more indicative of like 2018, 2019, and we probably don't need to consolidate as long. But Bitcoin really has only had a V-shaped bottom, as in a V-shaped macro bottom, like once, and that's or once in my that I can remember. Maybe there's some previously in like 2014, 2013, but in March of 2020, this is the only type of macro bottom that I can really remember where it just V's up. Generally speaking, you need some sort of consolidation. So like, we all remember 2018, 2019, this chopped around for several months. V-shaped bottom in March 2020. And then all throughout 2020, it just spent like chopping around. This was just all consolidation, all consolidation, all consolidation. It's just a big accumulation. And it's quite possible this is something that we see in 2022. It's just lots of consolidation, and then we run very hard. And one thing I really forgot because I was blindly bullish was that when Bitcoin really starts to run, it runs hard, but it does need a long time to reset. And that's one of my biggest mistakes back in kind of September and October area, is that I thought that this was enough time for it to reset and for it to consolidate. But if you look back at the previous price history uh, of 2020, really, where price just chopped around and consolidated nearly the entire year after the V-shaped bottom, it really didn't do a whole lot. And then once it ran, it went from 10 to 60K pretty quick. It still needed an entire year to consolidate and move. This isn't some 20th to or 20,000th ranked shitcoin on CoinMarketCap where it needs like $1,000 to pump it. Bitcoin needs a long time for it to consolidate, and it needs more time than just this, what we saw in May, June, and July. So that's one of my biggest mistakes that I made in the end of 2021 was I really thought Bitcoin was going to run hard, but I really I really forgot that it needed longer to accumulate, and I might make a video specifically on my mistake in that regard. But anyways, um, is the bottom in right now? I don't know. I don't think it's a V-shaped bottom. I am looking for a break of market structure where it goes like potentially higher high and then see where the low is set. But until that time, it's still bearish in the short term, in my opinion. And I'm really looking to see where the low is set. I don't know where it's going to be. Um, and if we start to look pretty strong, then like I'll definitely consider changing my bias. But thanks guys for watching, and I will try to do some more videos soon.